just kidding. Good morning and afternoon and evening, wherever you're listening to the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Louie hanging out with you. It is our Road to Pimlico series for Preakness 150. How about that? Johnny P, Dan Illman back in the saddle because I don't know why. But boys, good to see you. Nice to have you. Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you're doing. How about that?
It's called ratings.
Too.
Louie, it's called ratings is the word.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this show staying afloat because of the Maryland series. Want to welcome our new partner on this road to the Preakness, AmWager. Check them out. AmWager.com. $150 up to $150, dollar for dollar match on your deposit. Great platform over there. We'll tell you a little bit more about them later on. But gentlemen, good day to you. Dan Illman, you have Maryland related news since the last time we spoke with you. By the way, nice shirt. By the way, yeah, the hoodie, like those came out okay, didn't they?
They came out really, really well. I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting much from a production like this, but this was one of the better presents this year under the tree.
Well, there you go. Look, congratulations. We have to start there. It's awesome. If people don't know, Dan is has been at the Daily Racing Form. Actually, first horse he covered was Citation. And so this is a big move for Dan to get away. I'm kidding. Dan, how long have you been at the Form and what are you going to be doing in Maryland? I'll let you tell the story.
25 plus years at the Daily Racing Form. Amazing. And a great time for the entire 25 years working with some amazing people, leaving on some wonderful terms, but great opportunity at the Maryland Jockey Club. Just came up to be their director of communications. Of course, we're going to have a new Pimlico in a few years, new ownership. Really looking forward to just helping out. I've fallen in love with Maryland racing. I've fallen in love with the people there, the horses there, the stories there, and just would love to help out and help everyone get a foothold and hopefully start off this new era with a bang.
I'm excited to see what Pimlico is going to look like. I'm a guy, Dan, and you and I have never talked about this actually. I love Pimlico. It reminds me of the old Big Ten stadiums I grew up in the upper Midwest, or, Tiger Stadium for baseball games, that kind of thing. So while I'll be weirdly sad that they're making Pimlico nice, like at the same time, I am legitimately very excited to see where they're going to go with the track itself. And on top of that, picking a training ground, doing those sorts of things, there's obvious things are in motion. They're very clearly taking the next steps in Maryland. Frankly, it's pretty exciting.
Oh, we're very excited about it. And again, we want to do a lot of different things for the better. We want to put out some more handicapping information day to day, improve the quality of our handicapping shows, whether it be the morning show or the simulcast program, and tell the stories of our great horsemen. We've got some amazing horses out there. One of John's favorites, Clubman, won the other day. He's 10 years old. That means he can't run in Maryland next year, but he went out with a bang with a big victory. That was one of my favorite moments of 2024. We'll have some others later on in the show. But I'm very, very excited to get started. Did a lot at Daily Racing Form, accomplished a lot thanks to the help of so many great people. But I'm looking forward to a new chapter right now.
It should be awesome. And frankly, I feel like you're buying low, man. I have great feeling about where Maryland's going the next couple of years. So you're getting in at the bottom of the Maryland stock market in horse racing, at least, if you will. So there you go. Johnny P, are you a Christmas guy? Are you, is your family a big Christmas family? I was talking to John right before he came on the show. And one of the sad things about my adulthood is actually we've moved several states away from my family, and my job, my wife's job, we're stuck here for Christmas. So either people have to come here to visit or we're just stuck. Do you still at least get to do the family thing, John? Maybe little cousins, nieces running around, something like that?
Yeah, my family has hosted Christmas for a very long time. And now that I'm staying, like folks, it's very nice. This year we hosted my dad's sister, who used to live in town boarding us for a while, now lives down in Florida. So she came up to visit. So it was her husband, my uncle, my cousin, and my cousin-in-law. So a small group, but 8's a good number because it's enough people where there's like stuff to talk about and things to do, but it's not like overwhelming as far as like prep goes. Because I have friends who have like 20, 30 people over for the holidays, and it's like I don't know like how or why you do that, but they do. But it's a good
John,
number.
let me tell you how or why that happens. There are 18 of us at Christmas in Maryland right now. 18, John! 18!
A lot of people. God bless you. And I will say also,
I do
Christmas
love, by
Eve-
the way, that the only person physically in Maryland right now is producer Zach. That's hilarious.
That's
That's true. It's very ironic. But on Christmas Eve, I went to my dad's friend's house, and that was a gathering of about 15. So also a good number. But no, it's always a great time. We always open presents in the morning. We have big breakfast, eat Christmas dinner at like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and it's
That's
a fun
the best.
time. And my mom has a CD. It's from the 1970s. It's called the Sal Soul Christmas CD. It was her mom's originally, and it's like all these like disco versions of Christmas songs, and it plays basically on a loop in her house all Christmas season long. So especially on Christmas Day, it just plays like endlessly, and I mean that in like the best way possible, because it is a Christmas tradition around here.
Yeah.
But it is something that it's very much a part of the Piassek Christmas experience.
God, I love that. I'm so jealous. Disco Christmas, man. Oh man, that's just
Oh,
spectacular.
yeah.
It goes with your hair.
I'll
John.
send you a link after we're done with the show.
That'd be
It's very
great.
good.
I would love that very much. Well, speaking of great moments, I kind of wanted to just ask you guys as we get to the end of the year for your favorite sort of moments, horses, etc. But first thing first, if people are new to the path to the Preakness, the path to the Black-Eyed Susan, I thought it would be worthwhile sort of explain that path in Maryland and how they do that here. So this weekend we'll be previewing, 2 6 furlong races for 2-year-olds. The Heft, Run for the Boys, and the Gin Talking for the girls. Again, both at 6 furlongs. In January, we'll be talking about the Spectacular Bid on the Preakness side and the Extra Heat on the Black-Eyed Susan side. The girls will stay at 6 furlongs. The boys will move up to 7. When we get into February, late February, the Miracle Wood and the Wide Country will be contested at 8 furlongs and 7, respectively, on the male and female side. If you are new to Laurel Park, it is a 1-turn mile at Laurel, long stretch as well. So very similar to the layout of a lot of tracks that you've seen around the country, but certainly a 1-turn mile at that point. And then, by the way, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is logical, they do logical things in horse racing. Yes, they do in Maryland. How about that? And then we move to a mile and a 16th the month after in the private terms on the boys' side. We move out to that full 1-turn mile, in the Beyond the Wire on the Philly side. And then we get to the day, and there's only one guaranteed spot. It's in the Federico Tessio, and it is in the Weber City Miss, run at full 9 furlongs for the boys there for the Tessio, and 8.5 for the ladies. On the Weber City Miss spot, if you win there, you get a spot in the Preakness Gate or the Black-Eyed Susan Gate, a very logical progression for horses within the state of Maryland. And John, 1983, the last winner of the Tessio to go on to win the Preakness, his name was Deputed Testimony. So we will talk about him many, many times on this trail as well. But gentlemen, 2024.
I was about to say, Louie, what's your quote? The winner of the Tessio is the only horse you know is not going to win the Preakness.
The Tessio is a great predictor of who will not win the Preakness Stakes. That's exactly right.
Way to put over the product, Zach. Appreciate it.
There you go. That's why. So make sure you tune in for all 5 of the episodes that we're going to do here. That would be really great of you. We appreciate it very much. No, frankly, we love doing these because they turn into great betting races. Whatever it is about this series, they turn into great betting races. And on top of it, frankly, look, the Maryland winner can definitely hit the board in any of these races. And frankly, at some point, there's going to be the next Deputed Testimony. It's just going to happen. So we will get there at some point. But favorite moments of this year, I got to say, mine was probably seeing Mike Beer, meeting him at the paddock at Del Mar at the Breeders' Cup. What a great moment that was for me personally. Such a great handicapper, wonderful on screen, great hair. I'm just very jealous of all the things Mike Beer. Johnny P, what was your biggest moment this year?
Well, I had to break it up by favorite Maryland moment and favorite non-Maryland moment. So my favorite overall moment was in the Molly Pitcher on the Haskell Undercard, in which the great mare Idiomatic battled it out with Soul of an Angel, who eventually went on to win the Breeders' Cup Billionaire Sprint. I mean, and it's one of those races where if you were trying to get somebody into racing and you wanted show them a race, that would be a perfect candidate. Champion mare, great filly in her own right, being her rival. Those two battling it out down the stretch. Idiomatic showed tremendous heart, won by a nose, just a fantastic stretch battle. On the Maryland side, I picked 2 races. One was Pimlico Special, in which we had Pyrenees get the job done over King's Bones, and I'm proud to say I picked him for all the Gold Sheet readers out there. Hope somebody out there made that money. Hope that money lasted till Christmas weekend, and that you buy all your folks Christmas stuff. If I contributed in any small way to somebody having a nice Christmas, I am happy about that. And then in a very similar track as the Marley Pitcher, I also love the Frank Whiteley Stakes, which was run at Laurel back in April, in which two local stars, Coastal Mission, who's West Virginia bred and Maryland sired by the top stallion in Maryland, Great Notion, battled with Prince of Jericho, who's been competing in local stakes for a million years. Those two both ran huge. Coastal Mission won by a nose, and later that fall, Coastal Mission became the first offspring of Great Notion to earn $1 million on the track.
There you go. Class going class on that one. You're in $1 million. Got a drink. All right, Dan, go ahead with your favorite moments of the year besides seeing me at Breeders' Cup.
That was an absolute just pleasure. Talk about hair. I mean, boy, it really doesn't get better than that, than seeing that in the Del Mar sunshine glistening. But
I got a sunburn. It was like 61 degrees out. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was
right.
great. We couldn't give you a Triple Crown this year, but who would have had on their bingo card 2 years ago that Wayne Lucas would have a classic winner in 2024? And that to me was a pretty cool moment when Seize the Gray pulled off a little bit of an upset in the Preakness. The great Lucas can still train horses, and he took Seize the Gray from basically a virtual unknown during the spring to a Pat Day Mile winner, a Preakness winner, and then never lost the faith after a couple of defeats, comes right back to win the Pennsylvania Derby. So hats off to the legend Wayne Lucas, a tremendous training job with Seize the Gray, and he is still going strong. On the Maryland side, I think it was the emergence of Post Time for me, just going on to the national scene and doing some wonderful, wonderful things. He won the Carter. He was second in the Met Mile. He ran so well up at Saratoga when they stretched him all the way out in the Whitney. And he ran so well in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, getting up for second. Looking forward to a nice campaign for Brittany Russell this year. It seems like Brittany's worked out all the kinks. Post Time might have been a little bit ouchy early in his career. He seems just fine right now.
Man, those are good choices. I'm a really lucky person. We've had the same table at the Kentucky Derby since 2018, and essentially at the 8th pole. And that Derby is the best horse race that I've ever attended. I don't think it's close. Just being Derby 150, that finish, the crowd, I'll never get over the crowd reaction. I think that's really the part that I'll never get over. 100,000 people all gasping at the same moment. And then they play the replay and everyone gasps again because they can't figure it out even on replay who won that one. It was just a spectacular moment. And so I'm so glad that I got to see that. I'm going to go a different way here. Disappointment of the year was Idiomatic having to be retired ahead of that distaff showdown with Torpedo Anna. I think not even close to what could have been of horse racing this year. And so, but if we're going positive, it's not even something that happened on the track. Fierceness, Sierra Leone, Mystic Dan are all going to race next year, and that is just good for our sport. I'm very excited about the prospect of seeing more of these great 3-year-olds who are great over 2 turns coming back and running as 4-year-olds. And so I'm hoping that we had more of a blip on the radar, and this will become more of the norm moving forward. And so those are my 3 that I would point out. But I thought, and Dan, you bring it up, not a Triple Crown year, but I thought a really interesting and good year for the 3-year-olds.
Certainly. And I think the 3-year-olds got a lot of flack, if I recall, back in the winter and spring. It was the typical Twitterverse, Xverse, oh, it's not a great crop. And Mystic Dan, I think, has come back. And even though he hasn't won since the Kentucky Derby, we'll be seeing him in about 15 minutes in the Malibu Stakes. He's come back and has shown to be a legitimate racehorse. Of course, Seize the Gray in the Preakness. Dornoch, we forget about the year he had.
Oh, he was so
I mean,
to
tremendous. Belmont, and then to go on and do such great things later on in the year. And of course, Sierra Leone and Fierceness. And we've also had Mind Frame, who was
Maryland Mind Frame, I might add.
To see come back as a 4-year-old as well. So a lot of really good things. And listen, 2024 is not over just yet. I think the greatest moment could be tomorrow at Laurel Park. John's going to claim Coffee with Chris for $7,500, I believe.
I'm actually legally allowed to have a horse in my yard in Kentucky. I have enough land. So you bring Coffee with Chris over here. He'd come hang out with my kids, chase the coyotes that we have in the neighborhood around. I think I'll have a lot of fun. It'll be good. But there you go. John Piassek, Dan Illman hanging out with us. This is Road to Pimlico on the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Louie Rabeau with you as well. We're going to go through the late pick 4 at Pimlico. We are not at Pimlico yet. At Laurel Park. As we get through that card, we'll talk about the last race when we get there. We'll talk about it when we get there. It's not as bad as it used to be. I appreciate the people in Maryland. But we'll get there for sure. New sponsor on the show, new partner with us on these Road to Pimlico shows, and that's our friends at AmWager. So get the AmWager Edge. It's an online betting platform designed by horse players for horse players. It delivers speed, power, top tier features like true odds and conditional wagering. So if you're putting in a win bet or a pick 5, AmWager's got you covered, and you can bet smarter with all of their great tools as well. AmWager.com, a deposit match up to 100%, up to $150. You need an edge. You need AmWager. Go check them out today. AmWager.com. All right, boys, let's go ahead and head out to Laurel Park this weekend. Race 6 starts off the late pick 4 here, 6 furlong sprint on the dirt here. This is for fillies and mares that have started for $8,000 or less in their last 3 starts, or they're in for a 12.5 claiming price here. The purse is $24,000. Dan, anyone cutting back in distance that you like here?
Not really. Actually, I'm picking a horse that's oddly stretching out in distance. You rarely see that in these situations. Golden Can ran 4.5 furlongs last time out at Charlestown. Now, Golden Can is not exactly what's known as a win machine. She hasn't won a race in about 2.5 years, but she's pretty quick. She's going to be a good price in this race. I think she can make the lead. And I thought her last race in Charlestown was pretty good because she was on a very hard chase behind a 1-10 shot that got loose on the lead. And Golden Can really never showed any quit in the stretch, hanging on to finish second. 6 furlongs is actually stretching it a bit for Golden Can, who I think is 10-1 on the morning line. But I'd like to use this horse. To me, this is kind of a spread race. Anonymously is obviously the horse to beat, a tremendous amount of back class. And when you think Brittany Russell, you think a lot of quality horses, stakes horses, maiden horses, quality, well-bred maidens. Brittany's 11 for the last 26 off the claim and saw fit to take anonymously last time out off of a game win. That's the horse to beat, but I'm not sure that horse has such a tremendous edge over this field. I want to use Golden Can. I want to use anonymously. And then, because I have a single later on, I want to use a couple of others. Utterly Enchanting came close to anonymously last time out. Must have been forced 7-8 wide into the stretch. I think that ground loss hurt Utterly Enchanting. And I think Genie and a Bridle could be this key to the pick 4. This horse had severe trouble 2 and 3 starts back and then just ran into a runaway big favorite last time out. She's a lot better than she looks on paper. So I think it's kind of a spread race. Genie and a Bridle, Golden Can, kind of my value plays in there. You got the logical horses and anonymously and Utterly Enchanting.
How about you, John? Did you land on anybody?
I kind of have the opposite philosophy of Dan in that I think this is a race where I'd want to single and spread elsewhere. And I also think looking at this race from a win betting perspective or a pick 4 or pick 5 perspective is much different than an exacta players. Because if I was playing an exacta, I would be happy to play a cold anonymously Golden Can combo or an anonymously Genie and Bridle combo, because I think those latter two are going to be massive overlays for the reasons Dan outlined. But I think anonymously is much the best in this field. I'm not overthinking Brittany Russell first off the claim. And she won at this level last time while beating some of the horses she is running against today, and beat them in a way that I think looks much better than it looks on paper. She was 3-5 in that spot, behind horses at the top of the stretch. And Andre Chavez tried to send her through a hole that really wasn't there. Kind of had to muscle his way through, and she got kind of knocked around at about the 3/16 pole. Did finally get clear, and once she got clear, she showed a lot of punch. Won by a half length, probably wins by 2.5 or 3 if she gets clear. I trust Sheldon Russell, keep her out of traffic this time, and if she's in the clear at the top of the stretch, she'll just whoosh by everyone else, and I think win as much the best. However, if Golden Can is near her 10-1 morning line, I think she'd be a good horse for underneath in the exacta. Think she'll set the pace and hang around. Genie and a Bridle likely to come from well out of it. Don't think she has as much late punch, as much class as anonymously, but she's a good bet for second or third as well.
All right, we move on to the gin talking. It is for fillies. For the 2-year-olds, 7 furlongs here. on the form. Boy, why did I say 6 furlongs earlier? Is this a 6 or a 7 furlong race?
7.
Guys?
7.
It is at 7. Okay, so both races at 7 furlongs tomorrow or Saturday. I apologize. And so we will start there with the Gin Talking. This is for 2-year-old fillies. $100,000 in the kitty here, as we mentioned. 7 furlongs on the dirt there at Laurel Park. The 4 to 5 favorite, Dan, is Caprice coming into this one. Look, this is a horse with a ton of experience, 5 for 6 lifetime. Only blemish on the record is a second place finish, and that was 3 back at Delaware in a listed, or I guess a black type stakes up there. Is this a worthy 4 to 5 favorite here?
Absolutely. I think the Source is the horse to beat by far and is going to be my single in the pick 4, especially since the weather up at Parks has been so disastrous the last few days. And many of the horses that are entered in the stakes races for 2-year-olds at Laurel on Saturday are based up at Parks, including the number 5, Beyond Belief. Now, I talked to Beyond Belief's trainer, Ed Coletti, earlier today. He cross-entered this horse at Parks. He's planning on running there, and several horses in the Heft that are cross-entered are planning on running in a stakes race at Parks as well. So I expect Caprice to actually kind of go to face a shorter field, to be one of the controlling speeds in this race. I just think she's going to be real tough.
All right. I think you're going to try to spread here. John, who are you going to use to try to beat Caprice in this spot?
I'm not trying to beat Caprice. I think even if Beyond Belief runs, Caprice would deserve be 1 to 5, and if Beyond Belief doesn't run, Caprice would be probably 1 to 10. It would be an underleg. I mean, as you said, she's done nothing wrong, especially not at one turn. She's run huge races, going 7 furlongs or shorter. Her only loss came going 1 mile at Delaware Park in the White Clay Creek. Probably wasn't ready to go that far yet, but has done exceptional work at sprints. Got through 7 furlong test last time out in the Maryland Juvenile Filly Stake. She got pressed all the way that day by Safe Trust. Really never had an easy moment on the lead, but shook clear of her late, won by a length and a half. Just missed her career top figure on the Brisnet scale with an 89. Runs in mid-80s, low 90s, pretty steadily on that scale. Nobody else in this field can even really come close to that on a steady basis. I mean, if you're not going to single her here, I don't know where you'd ever single in any sequence ever. So I think it's best to just take the free square and try to find a good price elsewhere.
Reminder, low 12% takeout on the pick 5s. And so if there is a true single here, folks, we can kind of use this to make it a pick 4 in a sense that way as well, and add a leg to your wager that way. Dan, I want to ask you about Caprice then. We are doing a Road to Pimlico show here on the breeding side of things. She is, by Golden Lad. That's Medaglia d'Oro. She's out of Grand Folly. That's Street Cry on the mare side. That screams 2 turns to me. Is this a horse that we might actually see in the Black Eyed Susan starting game?
I'm not sure if she's going to be able to make it to the Black Eyed Susan. Again, we're talking very early 2-year-olds, and she got an early start. She's obviously a precocious type. I talked to Cal Lynch before this horse ran at Delaware, and he was confident that the horse would get the 2 turns that day. And while she was defeated that day, I thought she didn't, it's not like she showed she couldn't handle the distance. I just thought the ride was sort of silly, where she was battling it out throughout and made this big early move into the teeth of the pace, and just it set things up for a closer that I think snuck through on the inside and got them all. So I think distance might well be within her scope. The major concern when they get to the Black Eyed Susan are just the quality of horses, just going to be way tougher. And I think they're going to catch up to her from sort of a physical standpoint. She just seems to me like a very precocious type. And Cal does this with these young horses, gets the money when he can.
I would say it's time to move on to the Heft Stakes. This is 7 furlongs on the dirt for the boys. For 2-year-olds, 100,000 in the kitty here. As well, we're on the road to the Preakness. John, we'll start with you. One-man team is a 2-to-1 favorite here, but we also get a 7-to-2 second favorite in Sacred Thunder. Similar to Caprice, has run a ton this year. Are you going to try to beat a one-man team in this spot?
Yes and no. I mean, it's a very wide open race. I think about 5 or 6 of them have a very good shot. So if I was playing a pick 4 or a pick 5, I would spread in here, but I did not pick one man team on top. I ended up going with Sacred Thunder on top. He ran a big race. I thought 2 starts back in the James Lewis. Came from just off the pace, wore down what on paper looked like a very salty field, including top 2 finishers in the Maryland Millie Nursery and Do It Michael, and remarkably beat them by a length, matched his career top prisoner figure that day with a 93. Then had what I thought was a pretty rough trip in a Maryland Juvenile last time. He was bothered at the break from the inside post, didn't get his usual spot towards the front end. He was behind horses the entire way on the far turn, never really had a place to run. And once he got going in the clear on the outside in the stretch, he ended up showing some good punch and ended up losing place in a 3-horse photo. Now he's breaking a little bit further to the outside. He's drawn post 5. If Fire Pit does guard Pokes, he'll be in post 4. He should be out in the clear just on or near the pace. He'll have every shot to get his trip. And if he runs back to really his races 2 or 3 back, he'll win this one.
How about for you, Dan?
Well, it looks like Fire Pit and the 9 and the 10, Baby Dukes and Crab Daddy, are going to scratch and run at Parks, at least according to their connections earlier today. So the Heft lacks a little bit of the same heft it did when they drew the races, but I'm with
Quite
John.
as hefty as before.
I like Sacred Thunder in here, and Gary Capuano even mentioned some of the things that John had said, that he thought the post position got this horse beat last time out. He had to break from the rail. He was just buried down inside. The pace was not fast at all. He had to come from last and widest in the stretch, and he was running on at the end, and his win 2 starts back in the James F. Lewis shows that obviously he belongs with this kind of horse. One-man team, all eyes are going to be on him. He is a son of Nyquist out of a half-sister to Justify. There's a lot of pedigree here. He won his debut by 6 lengths for Brittany Russell as the favorite, and he has speed. We're going to learn a lot more about one-man team in this race, but I think if we're trying to score here in this pick 4, maybe this is kind of the spot to try to fade one-man team, where I'm not sure he has, again, such an edge over a horse like Sacred Thunder. I might even want to use Barbadian Runner as a little bit of a backup. I think Blinkers could be the answer for this horse. Last time out, he was sort of in between and in and among on the backstretch. I don't think he was very comfortable with that. He sort of backed himself out of it. And then an upper stretch, when he was produced with his run, he started drifting in a little bit. So he's a bit green. Maybe the Blinkers will get him to focus. It is worth noting, he did hold off Sacred Thunder for third money in that race. So he showed a little bit of grit. He's going to be a good price for Henry Walters, who's sort of a under-the-radar trainer. Maybe a horse you may want to use at a price along with Sacred Thunder. And curious to see what we get from one-man team.
I think even in a field of 8, which you're talking about, I think you're going to get Barbadian Runner every bit of 8-1. I think that's I think the morning line is going to be pretty accurate on that one. We always play a game with the feature of the day. I don't know if you guys remember this ad, but I loved it so much. The Hefty Company had Hefty.
And then there was Wimpy.
That's right.
There it is. All right. So if the
here's a trivia question, by the way. Here's a trivia question for Dan. Louie might know this too, but he may not. Of course, the Heft Stakes is named after Arnold and Sylvia Heft. Who are they best known for owning?
Oh, you're talking to a man that is suffering from the beginnings of dementia. I should know this, but I don't. You could give me the answer, John.
3-time Maryland Million Classic champion, Ain't Too Fast to Catch.
Yes, Ain't Too Fast to Catch. Very, very nice. Very
3
good.
times.
Very
good.
good.
That's a good one. By the way, Ain't Too Fast to Catch. Hefty. That's right.
Yes.
You darn right. Let's go.
All
right.
One for each Maryland Million Classic win. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Fire Pit will be on the post position. If you take out the runs on turf, this horse has hit the board first or second every single run on dirt. John, first up, Hefty, Whippy, for the one horse here, Fire Pit.
I mean, I think Fire Pit, he has to be at least respected, as you said. If you take out his grass form, his dirt form has been very sharp. Lost to Saxton in his last dirt start. Of course, Saxton came back and came in second in the Maryland Juvenile. He's also in this field. One long shot, who I kind of like, who's cross-entered at Parks, but if Linda Albert changes her mind and runs him here, number 10, Crab Daddy, I think has to be respected. A big second on debut back in early November, came from well off the pace that day, came in second under Darwin Rodriguez, who was a very young apprentice, not as experienced a rider as, say, Ruben Silvera, who got aboard him next time in the Pennsylvania Nursery. Made a very nice move up the inside, came from well off the pace, won by almost 4 going away. Improved his prisoner figure 13 points that day from his debut. Beat the Boys Warrior, who had won the Whistle Pig Stakes on Pennsylvania Derby Day. So he beat some classy horses. He should pack a solid late punch here, 15-1 on the morning line. If you get anywhere near that, that would be a pretty big bargain.
For me,
All
Louie,
right,
I would say Fire Pit's kind of a wimpy, though, for me, I'm going to guess, because he's probably going to scratch talking to Lupe Preciado, who is
Oh,
sunning
Lord,
down
all
in
right.
Florida instead of spending the winter up at parks where the weather's been lousy and they haven't been able to train. But also Lupe told me that this horse still is a little bit green. He's shown some abilities, a little green, and I think the rail post worries him here, that maybe if he has to break inside, it's just going to freak this horse out a little bit. And then you throw in the ship down to Laurel. Remember, these are babies. So if Fire Pit does happen to, and the connections do happen to change their mind and he runs here, to me, outside looking in.
All right, 2 Barbadian runner. The Boyce Walters combination here. We already know for Dan that is Hefty. What say you, John? Can this horse win here?
About Beta Runner? Absolutely. I mean, he has been kind of knocking on the door in these kind of stakes races. As Dan mentioned, he was a very solid third last time out in the Maryland Juvenile. And one thing that's interesting about him is he was bred at Shamrock Farm, which is home of the new Maryland Training Center, and by Barbados, who happens to stand at Shamrock Farm. So that'd be a nice little connection there. As I said, he's been knocking on the door. I'm not sure if it's going to be the day today or Saturday, but he is a good horse to use in the exotics underneath.
One-man team, one on debut and is trained by Brittany Russell. I will go ahead and hefty for the show. And then we will move on to Saxton, the 4-horse here. Not one that we spent a ton of time on. Did finish second, as you mentioned, in that Maryland Juvenile, John. But Dan, is Saxton a hefty or a wimpy?
I think he's a hefty in here simply because he has the ability to stay close to the pace. And as we talked about in the last race, Sacred Thunder, Barbadian Runner, these are horses that came from out of it and I think are more comfortable coming from off the pace. Saxton was chasing a pretty solid, pretty even pace last time out, and then was still able to finish. He's another horse that to me is still learning. My worry is that maybe he doesn't have the upside of some of the others, but for now, I am going to use him as hefty because he's shown that he can compete with these kind of horses, and he's going to be a price.
We'll move on to the 6 Yaris Quest, since I think both of you think Sacred Thunder's at least got a really good shot here. Yaris Quest comes in off the maiden win at 6 furlongs, did a lot of the work in this race, frankly, on the front with the group there. Of 8 that he was in, broke from the 2 last time, gets the 6 here, does this son of Liam's map. Yaris Quest, what says John Piassek? Hefty, or whippy?
I think he's kind of wimpy in here. You know, I did not think that was an especially strong maiden field, but figure at least on the Brisnet scale, he'll not come back that quickly. I mean, and also he's made only 1 start. A lot of these horses in here are a little more battle tested. Sacred Thunder, for instance, has raced 8 times. Saxton's raced 4 times. The Beta Runner has raced 7 times. And I think everyone else in here has, or at least other contenders, have either made multiple starts or have won a stakes race. Yaris Quest fight. It's neither of those criteria. He'll have to improve in a hurry to win this one.
A little wimpy for John.
To John's point, though, Louie, I talked to Jorge Duarte earlier today, and I think one of the reasons Duarte's been drilling this horse 5/8 of a mile, 3/4 of a mile, is to try to get as many miles and experience into this horse as possible in a short amount of time, not knowing with the weather that you might miss a day or two if the track is frozen or if the track is snowy or rainy, and also because he knows he's going to be facing experienced horses. A very well-bred horse. The Dam here was a graded stakes winner. But that being said, I do wonder if this is a little too much too soon. We have seen 2-year-olds improve their speed figures leaps and bounds from start to start. This horse is going to have to do it against a pretty good field.
There you go. That was the 6 Yaris Quest. We move on to Shooter's Gotta Shoot, the 7-horse. That's actually how I met my wife. And wait a minute. I walked up to her. It's the only woman in my life I ever just walked up to. It worked. I don't know. Very 1 for 1, Dan. How about that? That's called, you know what that's called? Hefty. How about that? All right. So, especially since she's actually a palatable human being, which is kind of stunning given that I'm not. Shooter's Gotta Shoot, Dan. Hefty or wimpy here?
Tough choice. You know something?
Yeah,
I think Shooter's Gotta Shoot actually is a hefty for me in this race because I think he's underrated. He showed that He's been in some stakes competition before, the stakes placing at Monmouth over the summer. His speed figures are not too far off of those of the top competition in the race. And again, we have a situation where we have a horse who's going to be a price, and maybe he's just found the right field at the right time. If you were talking to me about Shooter's Got to Shoot in the Tessio 6 months from now, I'd be like, about that. Okay. But maybe this is just the right spot for him. I'm not willing to throw him out just yet. Hefty.
All right. Blanche's Mule is the 8 here for you, John. Is a maiden winner out of Charlestown at the 4.5 distance. You give this one a shot here. 30-1 if you want it. How about that?
It would be cool if he won, but he's not going to. So
okay, there you go. All right, so there's your field for the heft. We move on to the final here, the finale, if you will, as the kids say. 12.5 claimer here. We're going 5.5 on the dirt course. Of course, 22K in the kitty for this one. This is for fillies and mares 3 and up, which have never won 3 races, or if you're just 3 years old. You're in for the tag here at 12.5. You're allowed some weight as well, down to 10,000. So you'll see those differences in the claiming price here. How are we closing this one out, Dan? Because we got a 2-1 morning line favorite at True Sunshine here.
I think you got to use True Sunshine, though. He looked pretty good last time out for Kieran McGee. Just sat off the pace, blasted to the lead, and kept on going. Don't love that he was drifting out a little bit in the stretch, but I think he was mostly doing it on his own. It's not like the jock was attempting to correct him. But this is a race, again, where I'd like to use some longer priced horses like maybe Little Hot Mess, for example, a horse that I think just aimed way too high last time out, facing another one of those 1 to 10 shots, and is now getting a little bit of a drop in class. A horse like At First Sight is going second off the layoff, and I just thought the last race was a perfect prep. He probably needed that race, and he was on a hard chase going after the winner from the start, then understandably tired. With that race under his girth, I think he can probably you take that speed a little bit longer. And even if you want to use a horse like Shake It Baby, who was wired in a race last time out where they ran 1-2 all the way around the track, if you think the pace is going to be stronger and he gets a better flow, he can come with a kick. Spread in this race. True Sunshine's the horse to beat. I'm not sure I completely trust him.
John, where did you land in this one? I agree with Dan. This feels it's a nice closer to a multi-sequence wager. It feels pretty wide open.
Oh, absolutely. And what's interesting is 6 out of the 9 horses in here fit this class by being 3-year-old fillies. So you have horses who have won multiple times, unlike the older compatriots. And I think as such, it makes for a little better race than the condition might let on. I picked True Sunshine on top. For the reasons Dan mentioned. Very nice win at this level last out. Looks like she's in career best form. One long shot who I want to give a shout out to is number 4, Pinot's Little Girl, for Lacey Gaudette and Thais Liapestina. This one, we had some really nice races last winter at Turfway Park, including a big gate to wire victory against her fellow 3-year-old fillies back in early March, which she was pressed on the pace, one going away. Then came here in the spring, made her local debut on the grass against non-winners of 3 types, sat a great trip, kicked away very professionally, won by a length and a quarter in a very solid prisoner figure of 77. A mark like that probably wins this one. Hasn't been seen since early June, where she pressed the pace against her elders and lost by 3 lengths. Came back to the work tab in mid-November, has gotten 5 drills in the past 5 weeks. Not the kind of workload you usually see for a horse at this lower level. Clearly, Lacey Gaudette wanted to get as many works into her as she could before bringing her back to the races. She still might need a race first off this long of a layoff, but I would not be surprised see her win a big race here, and at 10-1 on the morning line, if you get somewhere around that would be a good number.
By the way, this race is full of horses we love. I think the smallest number of starts for this year is 5 in this field. Everyone else, lots of double-digit numbers and 8s and 9s and that kind of stuff. These are you get to know these fillies, these mares, right? This kind of thing. So this is the kind of race that if you watch a circuit, you get kind of used to. I think Determined Blue is really interesting in here. Getting back to Laurel is going to get dry go for this weekend, I hope. Since then has been trying 7, has been trying, a turf sprint at Laurel as well. I think this horse just getting back to the 5.5 on the dirt, I think will make it at least a little chance at a hefty. Probably not nice to say about the fillies. They probably don't want to hear that they're hefty. That's that kind of thing. Yeah, don't work. All right, so let's do this. We'll wrap up the show. It is Road to Pimlico. It is Preakness 150. It is amazing to me how often in horse racing, young Dan and young John, I think we just take for granted that, oh, they're running the 150th Clark. Oh, they're running the 150th Preakness. We just kind of take these things for granted. It's pretty incredible. But they're going to rebuild Pimlico. And I'll go first. The thing I will miss about old Pimlico the most, and it is very, I'm going to do something very arrogant, and I apologize to everyone, all 12 of you that are listening, is the roof at Pimlico and hanging out with the Baltimore City Snipers is its own experience on Black-Eyed Susan and Preakness Day that is impossible to describe. And I have to imagine with the redesign of that building, that place, from where I have done the horse racing happy hour, by the way, on that roof, will no longer exist very soon, young Dan Illman. And so I will miss the roof at Old Pimlico very, very badly. Watch the Preakness up there, the whole thing. Just one of those great vantage points in horse racing. I'll go to Dan first. What are you going to miss about Old Pimlico?
I won't miss the elevator that doesn't work.
It's not an elevator. It's just an elevator shaft. Yes, it's not.
I won't miss.
You know what that elevator is? You know what it is? It's wimpy. There you go.
I will miss, though, the tiny little paddock. I know it was very tiny, but it was kind of charming, the indoor paddock. And I have to admit, last year when I was sort of standing there before the Pimlico special and Red Route 1 walked by, and he just did not like the cut of my jib, and he turned around and he sort of mule kicked about 6 inches away from where I was standing and left a hoof print right in the wall. So I'll miss that. That was just a great moment. Red Route 1 immediately got the Maloika from me from now on.
I will say something that we get spoiled with when we're trying to get quotes and find trainers and do that stakes barn, man. If there's not a stakes barn at Pimlico going forward, which I think there probably won't be, right? Just in, if you go to the modern sort of layouts and that kind of stuff, I would hate for it to go away very selfishly. It's such a cool aspect of Preakness weekend, all those things at Pimlico. But yeah, I had to decide between those two things: the stakes barn and the roof. I went with the roof. How about you, John?
I would say the old Pimlico kind of straddled that line in between, being like a little bit seedy, a little bit dingy, and just being totally unpleasant. Like, it did have a lot of character, a lot of charm. You go back and look at photos of, really old Preaknesses, and you're like, this is the same building. People watch, Secretariat and Spectacular Bid, and of course, Peter Testimony, where he's from. And new building, it's going to be very nice, a lot more glamorous, but it's not going to have quite that same history and that little pinch of character that makes like a really fun place to go. And hopefully they keep the same food provided, because I am also nostalgic for the chicken tenders.
I like the food at Pimlico. The little stuff too, like when it rains, you have to walk through a puddle to get to the media area. Like, I'm gonna miss that. I'm not gonna lie. And actually Pimlico does have an underrated press balcony.
Yes, absolutely. It's a amazing vantage point.
It's stunningly great. Yeah. Producer Zach joins the show. I think you're wearing Christmas pajamas, which makes me very happy. If you're not, that shirt is Christmas pajama. Oh, it's just a dad shirt. Okay, never mind. All right, okay, never mind. All right, okay. That's disappointing. Never mind, dad shirt. Go ahead.
You're all wrong. There's one word: freakness. Because they're not going to let the infield exist the way that it does now.
That might go away. I think that's right. Yeah. No. The real hero, though, Zach, you know this, is our lady who helps us park our car every year, Raven.
Every time.
There's actually a woman that works at Pimlico named Raven, and she gets us a great parking spot every year. But once Illman's in charge of parking, we're screwed. I mean, he's going to go to Raven. He's going to be like, these guys are not allowed on the grounds.
It'll be a new experience for you guys to pay to get in.
I've done that before. You watch this. I've done that before. I've made a Pimlico before. Oh man, well, good stuff. But Preakness 150 coming up. Want to thank our friends at AmWager. They're going to be hanging out with us all the way through. We'll be doing our annual night before Preakness. We'll be at Jimmy Seafood doing our seminar with our friends at AmWager. We'll have tons of giveaways for that kind of stuff too. So if you are planning your trip to Charm City, we'll be there as well. Dan, again, we joke a lot. There's a lot of hefty jokes on this show, but I mean it, man. I'm selfishly, and I mean purely selfishly, I'm so happy that you're going to be in Maryland, because I love that trip every year. Frankly, now I'm probably going to make it to make sure that I get to the Maryland Million every year. And so just congratulations on the job. And I'm thankful that someone of your capability is going to be part of the rebuilding of Maryland horse racing. And so congratulations.
That means a lot. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, he's Dan Illman. He is Johnny P. John, what's going on year end here at Yonkers that we need to know about? What's going on with our friends, with the guys in like the chairs with the wheels and they're running around the oval thing there? Yeah. What's going on?
We had our last day of the season back on December 20th, our 241st and final day of 2024. Nobody in the country versus more days than us. So we're on our little winter hiatus. We're back in action January 20th. And this December, we had the first ever MGM Grand Prix pacing series, kind of a series for top older pacers. Give them something to do after the Breeders' Crown. And the final was worth $250,000. That was the richest harness race anywhere in North America in the month of December. So it was really cool to host that. We had a trotting series earlier in the year. Flavian Pratt came by on trotting final night, and that was really awesome. We interviewed him on our simulcast feed. So it was a great first year at Yonkers for me, and looking forward seeing what 2025 brings.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And listen for John on the mic up there at Yonkers when they get desperate. That's essentially how that works.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
was a great job up there. Now we love you, John. Get out of here. All right. Well, that has been Road to the Preakness episode 1. We will be back in January. We'll be talking the Spectacular Bid and the Extra Heat, both of those similar races to what we'll be seeing on Saturday. For John and Dan, thanks for hanging out with the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Zach, go ahead, play us out of here. And we will see you in a month on the road to Pimlico.